Excellent connection, very good. Well, we get some people who are titch early. I'm trying the Rode mic tonight. You might comment on my audio. This is the same microphone that I used for recording videos. Okay. Let's see. Where do I want to go? You know what? Yeah. Is that 40? No, that's 20. 30. Not much on 30. 40. Yeah, starting to see some activity. Not much on 80. 17, 15. Okay, I guess it's about time to go. All right, here we are. It is time. Put things in the right place on the screen here. And hello. Hello to everybody who is listening. I'm Dave Casler, amateur radio call sign KE0OG, here with another Thursday live stream. And welcome to everybody. Been a work day here. My assistant is still here, editing a video that we did on the new, this is the ZBITX from HF Signals in India. The way you turn it on is you connect the batteries, and then the screen comes on, and it's got a boot and everything. It's built on a Raspberry Pi with another board. I tried to take these screws out because it looks like the top comes off. But no matter how much you turn the screws, they don't budge. So I don't know what's going on with that. Let's see, waiting for the ZBITX to start. I guess it has started. And it's doing FT8. I'm going to connect an antenna. Oops. So let's take a look at this, the overhead. This is the QRP Labs QMX Plus that I picked up at Dayton, and it's most of the components on it are already mounted on the board, and then you've got these millions of toroids to do. I had a real problem with this. I'll go into that later. Let's come back here and say hi to people. Where am I? Okay, let's see if I can see these now. Okay. The chat was disconnected for just a moment. I had to switch from our local internet provider back to Starlink. The problem we had today was the first day that if you had a telephone and your provider was T-Mobile, you could connect direct to a satellite. And the network went down, and it was on the news and everything that the network had gone down. So we switched over to the local internet. I'm back on Starlink now. So our first person was McCamer, and said, "Good evening, Cam McClelland, VE5MCR up in Saskatchewan. Welcome to the show. I don't think I've seen your name before, so welcome. I'm glad you're here." What we try to do on this period of time that we have together on Thursday evenings is chat among ourselves and trade stories. And if you have a question, I will endeavor to answer it. And if I can't hear, maybe it'll make a good video. We'll try that, see what happens. Radio Dad 777 also says good evening. Magic Man for Ann had a message. Roger Randolph, hi Dave. Bill Myers, KA8GIM. Good evening, Dave and all Augies. Now some of these have got some interesting I don't know what these new symbols mean. There's a number 1 and number 3. Good evening, Dave and all Augies. Emmanuel 4K. Hey, David, how's it going? Doing fine. Magic Man for Ann. VA7WXZ from Canada. I understand that people in Canada are taking a little different view of what's happening at the border than a lot of Americans are. And it's interesting to watch. I tell you what, we live in interesting times. What's that? There was the old, was it an Irish curse or something like that? May you live in interesting times. These are certainly interesting times. Okay. McCamer said, I see people that make random metal objects into an antenna. What type of equipment is required? 9-to-1 balance? Not necessarily, no. What you need is a very good tuner. There are tuners that'll take up to an SWR 10-to-1. The best thing to do is to make the link between the tuner and the metal object as short as you possibly can, like inches. Okay, and then that way there aren't the big losses in the transmission line between your antenna tuner and the wire. I tried that once for a video. We took my automatic tuner from MFJ, which is not part of my station right now, and took it outside, gave it a battery because it's automatic, and then just attached a 35-foot piece of wire to it. And we were able to tune that up on lots of different bands. After I figured out I had to turn the tuner off in the radio. When I tuned the tuner off in the radio, then the automatic tuner out there worked fine. So the transmission line was actually between the radio and the tuner. And then the tuner dealt with the antenna directly. This is the kind of thing that you need to do with the 40-foot vertical, 43-foot vertical, and lots of other antennas that are wildly off. The antenna tuner right there adds the necessary reactance so that you can get a good SWR back to the station. So that's what you do if you turn anything into an antenna. You're going to have to do something about that. Now, remote antenna tuners are not unknown. I think Kenwood, Yaesu, and ICOM all make them. And you can get them also from, let's see, it's in QST here. These people are always advertising about it. Old fingers don't turn pages very well. They're usually right up front. LDG there. They've got their nice, they've really sharpened their lineup a little bit. This is an automatic tuner, and they also have a remote tuner that you can put out by the antenna. Now, mine, I needed to put a battery with it because it's designed to be indoors, but the way they do it is through something called a bias T, where they put the DC voltage on the coax, and that goes out to the device, which takes off the DC voltage, sends that to the mechanisms, and then the RF goes in through the RF chain. Basically, you put a little inductor in there, and that'll pass the DC, but not the RF. Put a capacitor in there, which will not pass the DC, but easily pass the RF. So you do that at each end of the line. The one inside the shack is called the bias T. Okay, so 5.9, good audio, great. I'm glad to hear it. This is the little Rode microphone, and it's got little lights on it. Nice, I guess. And This is the actual master that is at the receiving end. And there's a little jack here where my assistant can listen on headphones. And it's a line out. And then I've got that plugged into the computer as line in. And so it seems to work. Okay. Great audio from Tim in Texas. Christopher KK7PZA, greetings from Arizona. How are you down there? Imagine it's warm down there. Where are you in Arizona? Chuck Schreiber, good evening, Dave, and hello to all Augies. N5 KVO from the Hill Country of South Texas, sunny and 90 at 7 p.m. Google wants me to insert ads. I'll pass on that. Brent, KQ4YHR, hi Dave, says you are live. Yes, I am. And Radio Dad 777 says, hi McCamer, you need a very good antenna tuner. Yes. Our Family Post, recommendations for very first mobile ham radio. It would be nice to get multi-band radio also. Okay. There are two decisions you have to make for a mobile radio. Let me show you mobile. So we all know what it looks like. I've got two down there, a Kenwood and a Yaesu. This is the Yaesu. It's an FT7800R. This is an FM only radio that's dual band. This is the microphone for it. Okay. And this is the radio itself. Okay, so it's not dreadfully big or anything. The speaker on this one fires up. So you can mount it about anywhere in the car as long as you don't push it up against the dash. And it actually comes with a mounting bracket. This mounts in your car, and then you're given screws. This slit part goes on the back, so or the front, whatever works for you, so you can slide it up and down in terms of tilt to get it just right. The thing is designed with a fair amount of cable. A lot of these come with two fuses down in this part. And that's what they would like you to attach this directly to the radio. And the reason for the fuse in each side of the line is that there are failure mechanisms where the entire DC return current to the battery can end up running through the radio. So you want to pop a fuse rather than burning out that wire. So this is like a 40 or 50 watt radio. This happens to have a detachable front. See, the front comes off. It's got a little telephone cable like that, and it also comes with a 20-foot extender. Now, the problem with the extender, you plug in your microphone here, but the problem is the speaker's here. Okay, so you've got to put the radio where you can hear the speaker, because there's no speaker in that detachable part up here. And you can do just about everything on the radio from the microphone. It's got all these buttons and bells and whistles and all that kind of stuff like that. Now this radio is, I think, yeah, dual band. So it's got 2 meters and 70 centimeters. So those are the two you would look at. Now, if we go, I'm going to switch over here to the, not the overhead, the, not that, the screen. I'll get it eventually. I'm going to go to, let's scratch that one and open a new one, DX Engineering, okay, and take a look at radios. The other choice in your radio is that it could be dual band, mobile, transceivers. Okay, let's put the word transceiver in there. Transceiver. Okay, you've got Yaesu. Okay, and there are others in there too. Let's take a look at this Yaesu FM dual band transceivers. They've got one. This is the FTM 150R. Okay, dual band mobile transceiver. It's got plenty of power. You don't really need that much power. In fact, the 25 watts will do fine in a mobile environment. Okay, and this does have the detachable head. It's $300 today with the rebate. Okay, and in stock they have more than 10 available. So that is a choice if you want a Japanese radio. Now the other choice is a Chinese radio, and you can get something like, let's see if they carry them, I don't know, any tone. 578 right here. Here's the 578. This is a lot more expensive because this is not only FM, but it's also digital. Okay, so this does all kinds of other things. It's quite expensive. If you're going to buy any tone equipment, I recommend that you get it from a place, see if I can remember their name now, Bridgecom Systems. Okay, Bridgecom Systems sells you mobile radios here, okay, and they give you a whole package for it. One of the nice things about this, if you're doing DMR, is that you're dealing with a company that's going to be there when you have trouble, okay? If you have trouble, they'll answer the phone if you bought the radio from them. They also have training courses and stuff available for DMR. Now, there are three kinds of digital. There's the DMR, which is used by all of the Chinese radios, and Alenco, okay? And then there is digital, the JARL spec on, forgetting names here. It's, let's search with, let's see, digital VHF transceiver. See if that gets something for us. Okay, dual band, digital, dual band transceiver, now, I thought we got some before. Okay, dual band, here is one for $349. Now this has digital ASP. There is some digital in here. Select transceiver packages, the ICOM and Kenwood do what's called, is it J-Star? Do you remember, Tegan? He doesn't. Dual star, let's see, J-Star, and then there is the Yaesu System Fusion. So let's do a mobile. Transceiver. Okay, here's your FM one. Let's see, this has got digital ASP. Let's see what else we have here. ICOM. Here's a Yaesu, $299. Anytone, D578, $399 for the radio. Okay, Alinco is also DMR. Anytone is, of course. Yaesu is System Fusion. Okay. They've got a different C4FM is one of C4FM digital. Okay. Notice that the digital radios are a lot more expensive and they are not interoperable. D-Star, not J-Star, D-Star. Okay, with a GPS receiver built in. And note the prices are going up on these things. Here is one that is ICOM. This is more for commercial. Black edition transceivers. What has it got? You can listen to airband and listen to some of these others. Here's an Anytone. It's a handheld that has DMR in it. Okay, for $200. If you go with other kinds of Alinco, they're a little less expensive. You'll need an antenna for the car. This is a dual band. Alinco is sort of an also-ran. You've got Yaesu, Kenwood, and ICOM. And then the Alinco doesn't sell as many. Oh, now you're really going back here. That one's been around for a long time. There are some HF radios that will also work on VHF, UHF, like the Yaesu FT991. And they're, let's see, it's their, let's look for Yaesu FT710, is it, or 7? Yeah, AESS, here it is, right here. Come on. Okay, this one right here will go, oh, it just goes to HF and 50. It doesn't catch the VHF, but if you do the 991, which is an older radio, A, you want to get the A model. Don't. This one will go HF, VHF, UHF, okay? And real-time spectrum scope and stuff. Nice little radio, a little pricey. My favorite radio for new generals is the ICOM 7300. That's what I have in my station. See, it's a little bit cheaper. They're trying to stay under $1,000 even. Okay, and they've got little kits with it. And the 705 is a portable version that's only 20 watts. In a lot of the world, amateurs are only limited to 20 watts. So there's a lot of little things that you can do with it. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Let's go back to the live stream. Just wanted to answer the question, what would be a good first mobile rig? So you have to make a decision. Are you going to do digital? If you're just going to do FM only, you don't need to go for the digital. If you are doing the digital, you need to choose between DMR, which is Chinese, and Alinco, which is of course, all the radios are made in China, but the Japanese radios, they have their additional quality control. So ICOM and Kenwood have D-Star. And ICOM has C4FM, also known as System Fusion. I think C4FM is a part of System Fusion. Now, the nice thing about the digital radios is that if you talk to a digital repeater, you can actually connect through that repeater to the internet, which connects you to another repeater somewhere and talk to people there. Or it can connect you to, it's called various things, but like a room, it's sort of like a party line telephone where everybody hears everybody else. And there's hundreds of them. You can look them up. Some cover whole countries like Germany, if you want to practice your German, or Italy for your Italian, Spain for your Spanish, well, your Spanish, or Mexico for your Mexican Spanish. They also make what are called hotspots, which are kind of pricey. But what a hotspot does is it connects, your radio talks to the hotspot, which talks directly to the internet. And you can actually talk to another guy halfway around the world doing the reverse, the hotspot and the DMR radio. Okay, I hope that answers your question there. Recommendation for very first mobile ham radio. Now, note, yes, get the multiband, okay? I would say in most cases you're fine with the FM. Now you're going to talk to local people on the local repeater, and whereas if you get the digital, you can do other things. The thing is that the three main digital things, DMR, D-Star, and System Fusion / C4FM, belong, each one is popular in a different area. So if you're going to go digital, find out what other hams are using in your area. They might all be on Yaesu. They might all be on D-Star. They might all be on DMR. So they're all perfectly capable, but they do not interoperate. However, there are some of these chat rooms, party line things, where you can come in DMR or come in D-Star or come in System Fusion, and you can all talk to each other. That's about as close as you're going to get to standardizing. Each group of people say that, one, theirs is best. Two, it's just better. And Yaesu is never going to adopt D-Star because it's got too big of an installed community of C4FM people. And Kenwood and ICOM are never going to go to that. And none of the Japanese are going to do DMR, except Alinco is doing it. The thing is that's really interesting is that the Chinese don't want to have anything to do with the Japanese, and that's why they are doing DMR. DMR is a worldwide standard. It's used extensively in the United States for law enforcement, fire departments, sheriff departments, everything like that. There are a lot of features in DMR that are not needed in ham radio. So that's well understood. For example, there's something called a color code. Nearly all hams use color code 1. Okay. Color code is sort of like CCTSS, the tone system. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff going in and out of it. I have a radio here that I need to review. It's the Anytone, and it's a it's the 178, and it's a handheld that's DMR. I don't have a battery on it right here, but Nice little radio. Now, all the digital radios also work on FM. So if you can't talk to somebody because of digital incompatibility, you can talk on FM. They all have FM. Okay, let's see. Dr. B's Idaho, Dave, I want to thank you for all you've done for the ham community. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I try. Glenn K., greetings, Dave and Augies, tonight from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. W2KXY. Tim in Texas, excellent audio on the Workbench Cam 2. I'm using this audio for all of the different screens. So they're all using the same one. It makes it easier. And somebody was saying that the audio quality was not really that high. So they wanted me to, do something better. So this is the same thing that I use for the videos. Okay. Mike AC1TS, good evening from New Hampshire. Emmanuel 4K, what are your thoughts on SHF, super high frequency? I saw an ad for the IC905 the other day, and it might become my next radio. Now, I think the IC, let's go back to screen here and go to ICOM, what is it, 905? No. Let me get that right. ICOM. IC905. ICOM 905. There it is, right there. Okay, this is a 20-watt radio. Oh, 10 watt. I take it back, 10 watt. Now, 10 watt is not QRP. QRP is 5 watts or less. Okay. Notice the price has SHF, in this case 23 centimeters. Okay. This is, boy, that's pricey. Wow. Woohoo. And you can get a transverter to do other things. But look at the price on that. I wonder if that's, let's check out hamradio.com. I see 905. 5-band multi-mode bass, 2 meters 70 centimeters, 23 centimeters, 13 centimeters, and 5 centimeters. And there's charging the high price too. I didn't realize those things were so expensive. Okay, well, anyway. Notice this is a technician type radio. If you're a technician, you can use all of that. And of course, I mentioned that my assistant got his tech license this past week. And I'd have to look at my phone at the text and see what his call sign is. Messages. Tegan, where's Tegan? Tegan. He is KF0UTR. Okay. And now, you've really got to be live streaming. We're back live streaming. Normal view. You've really got to be interested in these microwave bands, the 23 centimeters, so on and so forth. If we look at a band chart, there are amateur bands. You get a chart like that from the ARRL website. The bands, the VHF are 6 meters, 2 meters, and 1.25 meters, which has got 3 megahertz is space that's hardly used. UHF, you've got 70 centimeters, 33 centimeters, and 23 centimeters. And there is SHF and EHF. 2300 to 2310 megahertz, 3300 to 3500 megahertz, 10 to 1015 gigahertz, 47 to 47.2 gigahertz. That's right in the band where water will wipe that one out, water vapor. 122.25 to 123 gigahertz, 241 to 250 gigahertz, 2390 to 2450, 5650 to 5925. Some of these overlap with the Wi-Fi range too. So you can set up a classic router and connect it to a parabolic antenna instead of you know, the little Wi-Fi antennas. And a lot of hams are experimenting with that. And we have everything above 275 gigahertz. But by then you're getting into really high frequency stuff. I will tell you frankly that very few hams are to be found on those bands. By very few, I mean a minuscule number. And if you're going to have a QSO with one of them, you're going to have to arrange it in advance. Now, hams like to do all kinds of things like meteor bounce and moon bounce and so on. That's usually done like on 70 centimeters or in that range. There's special modes that you can use. Popular piece of software, WSJTX, has modes for media scatter and moon bounce. Normally people use it for FT8, but it will do a number of other things. So I would say get your 2-meter rig. I've got this one up here that does DMR. It's a 578 UV from Anytone, and it's DMR and FM. And I need to get that fully hooked up and do some things with it because it's just sitting there. Our club does its weekly net on 2 meters, and I usually miss out because I'm not here at that time. They also do an HF net on 80 meters on Sunday night. Okay, so I would say, yeah, get your little radio, get good on VHF, get your general, get good on HF. Find yourself a community of experimenters who like to deal with the microwave bands, and you can find some very interesting things going on. Okay, I wouldn't start there as a first thing to do as a ham. No, get your local VHF going, try out the digital, move to HF, get good at that. The thing about HF that is so different from VHF, VHF is usually full quieting. So you hear the signal like a telephone, okay? It's full quieting. Whereas on HF, it's anything but full quieting. And it really challenges your listening skills to be able to pick up stations in the midst of the static and all of that kind of other stuff that goes on there, okay? One of the best ways to make contacts and get DX stations on HF is during the contests. You'll see a lot of that stuff going on. Carol Martin, no, this is Glenn. Hello from far west Missouri. 79 degrees, relative humidity 74. It's a bit warm, but it'll cool off. Phil, KA2QIK. Hello, Dave and all Augies. Tonight from Montana. Welcome from Montana. JJ Hendo has added $5 to the chat revenue. And JJ, I want to tell you that I really appreciate that. The channel revenue is down because it's summer, people are doing other things and so on. And I've got to pay my assistant and buy little things to build and then review and troubleshoot and so on, so I can make some interesting videos about them. So he says, Dave, thanks for all the videos getting me started with shortwave listening and now studying for a ham ticket. Now, the dating myself, the technician videos are available at the ARRL space HQ YouTube site. And you'll have to do something like ARRL space HQ space Dave space Casler to find the playlist that has all the technician videos. So if you study with the ARRL manual, there's a video for each section, not just at the chapter level, but down in each section. So there's 23 or 25 sort of videos in there. And so the idea is you study or you watch the video, which introduces the chapter, then you read the chapter, then you familiarize yourself with the questions that go with the chapter. And if you're okay with all that, you go on to the next. Otherwise, go back and do that cycle again until you really know it. Now, I will tell you, it is my humble opinion, very humbly held, tenaciously, that you should be studying to become a ham, not just studying to pass a license. Because if you just pass the license test, you become a license holder. But until you lay your hands on a radio, then you become a ham. And I'm trying to teach with these little lessons and everything to help you, once you get your ticket, to get active in ham radio, to do things. So I show you how to make QSOs. I show you handhelds. I show you all those little things like that. Now, one thing you will need to do after that is join the ARRL. If you join the ARRL, then you can get behind the firewall, which is where the general and extra class videos are. Okay, so actually I made those videos. The league is leasing them from me as their training videos. Okay, so we keep them up to date because the books change every 4 years. This coming year, we're going to be doing the technician update. Okay, let me get this super chat from Sean here. KM6NFO adds $10 to the chat revenue, or the channel revenue, and says, Dave, thanks for the info on the IC905. Best wishes. Well, thank you very much, Sean. I appreciate that very much. Okay, let's see. Phil, KA2QIK, do you have experience using Logbook of the World? I have my own database I've designed myself and I've used for years. Do you know a good reference on how I could format my log data to submit? Yes, there is a standard format called ADIF, A-D-I-F. It's an XML type format. It's not really XML because you open the tag, you don't have to close the tag, you just put the next tag in there. Each QSO gets a bunch of things tagged. And you create that ADIF format, or ADI, and that will import directly into Logbook of the World. And if you have one of the common logging programs, I use N3FJP. They have a separate program for each contest that's built specially for that contest. And then they have a program called All Contact Log. And so everything ends up in there, and that's the one I sync with Logbook of the World. Now, when I do FT8 QSOs, those go automatically into N3FJP from WSJTX via JT Alert. Okay, and they go in and they go up to Logbook of the World, usually the same day I make the contacts, most of the time. And now when I make contacts and log them in my paper logbook, that means they've got to be transferred to the electronic logbook. And so if you've had a QSO with me on the air, send me a QSL card. You don't have to send me a self-addressed stamped envelope or anything like that. All you need to do is send me a QSL card. This is mine, okay, with a little bit of self-promotion on it about where you can find the channel and so on, and I put the data on the back. I thought it'd be fun, since I'm kind of into typewriters. That whole thing is from a typewriter, including the big thing right there, KE0OG. And then a picture of myself and the channel logo. And you don't need to send me an SASE, I will send you. Now, if you're going to send out a lot of QSL cards, it's probably a good idea to remember that just like for first-class mail, you can get postcard forever stamps. This is a reel of them, postcard rate. Okay, and these are forever stamps. Taking a lot of them out of here. Come on. I don't need that in there. But these are forever stamps, and you can use them for postcards. It says postcard instead of forever. But you can use these for that. And I send my QSL card just as a postcard. It's a little cheaper. And that's kind of how they've been. Some people like to mail them in envelopes, and then you do need to use a real forever stamp on the envelope. Some people won't answer unless you send them a self-addressed stamped envelope. I am not one of those people. I will answer your card. We made a mistake here. I was having my assistant fill out some QSL cards, and he filled out one for a station I worked recently. In the Seychelles. And this is off the east coast of Africa, not hugely far from Madagascar. Okay, and I actually worked that on 18 megahertz sideband. Okay, so really cool. Now, people like this, you don't send the postcard to them, you send it to their QSL manager, who will be somebody in the States. And they get the logs from the overseas station, and they'll fill out QSL cards. It is expected that you will send them at least a self-addressed stamped envelope. In some cases, they actually want a so-called green stamp, which is $1. These days, it costs more than $1 for international postage, so they'll ask for $2. And this guy, who was the QSL manager for the guy in the Seychelles, actually, if you wanted to send the money via PayPal, you could, but it was $3. So it depends on how much you want that Seychelles card. Now, there is an organization, worldwide organization, called the QSL Bureau. You send your cards to the League. They send them out to QSL bureaus around the world. Those QSL bureaus then send the cards to the people, usually when several pile up. And then you reverse the route to get it back. The Japanese are very good about this. Now, in the U.S., there are 10 QSL bureaus, one for each call district. So what you need to do is keep a self-addressed stamped envelope on file with the QSL bureau. And then when they get up to like 10 cards, up to a full ounce, they'll throw them all in and send it to you. Now, this is a very inefficient process. It can take 2 or 3 or more years to exchange QSL cards via the bureau. But there was a time when that's the way most of them were done. There used to be, back in old Soviet times, if you worked a Soviet ham, you had to send your QSL card to P.O. Box 88, Moscow. And from there, they sent them out to all the hams. It was the only way you were allowed to do it. Now, the Soviets considered ham radio to be a sport, just like shooting or skiing or accordion playing or whatever. It was a sport. And as a sport, the local commissars would build and fund local radio clubs with stations in them. The idea being that your average comrade probably couldn't afford his own station. So they would use the club station, and they would compete on various things. Morse code speed, da-da-da-da-da. And the really good ones would go to Moscow for the big annual whatever. I mean, and this, it was true all through Eastern Europe as well. Today, a lot of those club stations are still on the air. Now, you can QSL via the bureau. You don't have to do the Box 88 thing. But those stations are still there and still on the air. And that gives you the opportunity to work hams in Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union. And in case it slipped anybody's mind, Ukraine is a former Soviet republic. There's a lot of history of bad blood between the Ukrainians and the Russians, dating back to World War II. The Ukrainians did not want to be part of the Soviet Socialist Republics, Union of. And so when the Germans came through in World War II, they greeted the Germans as heroes who were going to push out the Reds. And in fact, the Germans actually put a regiment or two together of Ukrainian volunteer soldiers. Now, it was a very fraught relationship between Germany and the Ukraine. One of Hitler's headquarters spots, called the Wolf's Lair, was in Ukraine. And of course, Chernobyl still is in Ukraine. And one of the big points of contention is that because there were a lot of people in Ukraine who knew nuclear power, there's a much newer set of nuclear power plants that were put in Ukraine because just like the Soviets had all their tubes manufactured in Estonia and some in Bulgaria. The Soviets believed that the most efficient way to do things was to have one factory and one factory do it well. Well, with the breakup of the Soviet Union, that power plant went to Ukraine, and that has been a huge bone of contention ever since. Can you talk to Ukraine amateurs? Yes, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. And you can send your QSL cards either through the Bureau you can send. Usually they will have a QSL manager in the United States. Otherwise it takes a long time to get back and forth. And there is this little matter of the present day conflict that is going on over there. So anyway, okay, let's see. Start listening. So yes, I do have experience with Logbook of the World. I hope that helped. Doug Dry. Good evening, Dave and all Loggies. I'm Treadmill Mobile in Kennesaw, Georgia tonight. Silvermine 203. Good evening from Westport, Connecticut. Chris Ritchie Adventurous. I take it you did not go to Oshkosh this year. Oshkosh is happening right now. Oshkosh is the world's largest air show, and it takes place in Oshkosh, Michigan. And you thought Dayton was big. Dayton had 33,000 or 36, I think it's 36,000 people this year. That's a big gathering. Oshkosh will have over 100,000 visitors during the week-long, it's week plus weekends, affair that they have there. And they have all kinds of users groups, like all those who fly military aircraft will gather in one area. Those who fly, Piper Cubs or whatever that tend to gather. Way down at the bottom, there's an area there where they have their own separate runway for ultralight aircraft. Boeing always sends a 747 and its latest military jets and so on, and Lockheed's not going to be left out. So they're there too. And the air show, they have air shows there every day, different types. And they'll close the airport for a while, do the air show, open the airport back up so people can get in or out, and then do another air show. And they have fireworks every night. And they say that the average attendee walks 6 miles a day down there. Now, I don't know that I can do that yet. Now, this year, from the middle of last year to the middle of this year, I lost 50 pounds. So when I went to Dayton this year, I did not even take my cane in. I didn't need it. And I have discovered that if I lay down flat in the bedroom, near a chair in case I need a chair, but I can actually get up off the floor unassisted without having to use a chair to haul myself up. That is such a major improvement, and I'm very grateful for that. I don't have the fear of tripping and falling like I did before. There was one time I fell out in the driveway. Fortunately, my mobile phone was in my pocket. I called my wife, who was 50 feet away, and she came out and got a chair out of the RV, and then with the chair I could get myself up. Well, now I can get myself up, period, and I'm excited about the improvements in my health now that that 50 pounds is gone. I could do with losing another 50 to get back to standard weight for somebody my height. Should be more like 165 or 175 pounds. And I'm at 210 right now, sort of plateaued for the moment. So we'll see what happens. And yes, I'm taking Ozempic. I'm taking Ozempic for my diabetes. Now, in my diabetes, my last, A1C was like 5. That's in the good, not diabetic range. Okay, the last, let's see, in my morning diabetes, I check my blood sugar every morning, fasting blood sugar, and it's very often less than 100. And if it's over 100, it's not a lot over 100. And my pulmonologist sent me to have a lung function test, something like that. And I took that, and it was normal. It no longer showed asthma. Now, mind you, I take my inhaler everywhere I go. Okay? Because the pulmonary function test, that's the name, did not involve a treadmill or anything, and it's usually exertion that brings on the asthma. But I carry that, but I have not had to use it in weeks and weeks. So yes, I'm feeling much better. No, I did not go to Oshkosh. It is on my bucket list. And 8RWG, Rick Green, hello from northern Lower Michigan. Okay, so you're up against the lake then. The lake is to your north. I hear that. It's just absolutely beautiful country up there. Darren McLaren, hi from St. John, New Brunswick, Canada. Hello. Martin, happy Pioneer. Yes, it is Pioneer Day. Glenn is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as am I. And July 24th is the day that Brigham Young was leading the members across the Great Plains to get away from the persecution they were facing in Illinois and Missouri. And at that time, that was still Mexican territory. Now, the U.S. took it a little later, but for about 50 years, the Mormons were by themselves out there. They could do their thing, get established, get a population going, get some cities going, get their irrigation going, and so on, before around 1900, the world caught up with them. Okay, they became a state. The Senate refused to seat the senator that was elected from Utah. And Teddy Roosevelt's wife was at a soiree where, one of the Washington social parties, where the wife of the senator, it was Smoot, I think. Anyway, she spent the entire evening talking to the wife of the Utah senator. And that was the signal that, okay, Mormons are official. We're going to take them into the Senate. They'll have their congressional votes and so on. Okay, it was Teddy Roosevelt's wife who did that. And it's a fact not many people know, but true. But anyway, in 1847, on July 24th, Brigham Young's wagon rolled down Immigration Canyon, which was a terrible way to come. There was a better pass further north. But they came down into looking over the Salt Lake Valley. And he said, this is the right place. This is where we're going to settle. It was desert. But with irrigation and all that sort of thing, they made the desert blossom like a rose. And now, the this is the right place got shortened to this is the place. And there is a monument there. There's a little state park and everything to show the place. But still, in Utah today, they will have parades and so on celebrating, quote, the days of 47. That's 1847. Okay. And it was, so it's a big deal, holiday for the church. our ward is going to have a pancake breakfast in a local park in Uray on Saturday morning, as a sort of a celebration. There's also a song we usually sing on that day called Come, Come, Ye Saints, which oddly enough has made it into a number of Protestant hymnals, because there's nothing specific about it. It's just a song encouraging people to keep going, keep going, keep going, crossing those plains. There are many, many stories about people who ran into difficulty, but the fact is that well over 95% of the people who commenced that journey finished it. Okay, so they made it. But when I was 12, we had in our ward a 95-year-old man who came over with one of the last handcart companies before the Transcontinental Railroad came through and made the whole thing much easier. So there was quite a period of time between 1847 and it was in the mid-1860s to late 1860s when the Transcontinental Railroad came through. Now, there was a little matter of the Utah War. Some people back east were really stirring things up, and I think Mormons weren't really helping in how they reacted. Anyway, the federal government came in. Not a shot was fired in the Utah War, but Brigham Young came to an agreement with some colonel in the Army who was friendly to the church. And the Army went north and decamped in Ogden. And the Mormons stayed down in Salt Lake, and they started colonizing other areas. To this day, I-80, the old that follows the old Transcontinental Railroad, goes into Ogden. And there's another branch of it that goes into Salt Lake. The Transcontinental Railway did not come to Salt Lake. It came to Ogden. Why? The big federal presence there. The federal presence is very strong to this day. Hill Air Force Base, a very active U.S. Air Force base, is in Ogden, Utah. Okay? So the feds are up there. The Mormons are down here. Now, of course, Salt Lake is the capital, but very, very interesting history because there's so much left over today from the history back then, including the feds are up north and the saints are down south. So anyway, there you go. Hello from North. Yeah, okay. Hi from St. John, New Brunswick. Happy Pioneers Day. That's from Glenn, and to you too. Darren McLaren, VE9AE, Chris Ritchie Adventurous, nobody uses Linksys routers and flashes them over to BBHN. Yes, that's how they do it. That's usually how they do it. They take those old Linksys routers because you could update the firmware to handle the ham radio stuff. I'm getting an error on YouTube that says that they're not receiving enough video for a good stream. We'll see how that goes. Okay. I've been doing the live streams on Starlink for quite some time. We do have the ability to switch over to the local internet if we need to. Okay. Hello from, let's see, Chris Ritchie, yes. Larry Fields. Oh, Larry is from Manila in the Philippines. Good morning, recovering from our typhoons, two at the same time. Wow. I went through a typhoon in Manila. The missionaries, we were out working, and when we saw a piece of roofing tin fly by horizontally with no indication it was ever going to get all the way to the ground, we decided it was time to go home. We caught, I think, the last bus that went north from Tondo up to whatever the city is right north of Manila. I think it's all in Metro Manila now, but it was a different city then. And got inside. The typhoon blew over in about 2 hours. And then life just went back to normal. Everything was flooded, but yeah. Manila, Tondo is it's a neighborhood of Manila that's very poor. I mean, dirt poor. These people build houses on stilts out over the salt marsh. Okay, so they're basically 1 foot above sea level at high tide. Okay, and that's where we went to do our missionary work. Okay, now let's see. Okay, let me get back. Chris Ritchie, out of all the digital flavors, I chose DMR. I have 9 of those Linksys routers just sitting around, flashed. It'd be fun to do things with. Silvermine 203. John C., do you know anything about communications opportunities in Coast Guard Auxiliary for hams? I do not. However, there is the military affiliate radio system still around, and they do have opportunities for hams. I know a fellow in our club who's involved with Army Mars. Military is the Mars thing. Aquariums maintained by Andy. Hey guys. Sean, KM6NFO. I mentioned that earlier, the $10 to the chat revenue. Larry says, my grandson got a Cygnus UV85R and has been playing with it. And my UV5R told him to check out HRCC and plan to intro him to clubs. Good. Mike, AC1TS, have you looked at the Hermes Light 2 and or Apache Labs Revised 10E, fancier version of the Hermes Light 2? I'm going to have to look this up. I apologize. Hermes Type 2. Well, that comes up as herpes simplex. So I don't know what that is. There is a radio that you see advertised here and there that is, it acts like the old push-to-talk cell phones. And that's basically what it is, a push-to-talk cell phone. It's not ham radio at all. Now, I don't know what other bells and whistles it has on it, but they're trying to sell it to ham operators. Let's see. Been monitoring SitOrb Marine. Okay. Chris Rissy, what does ARES do and how do they function? ARES is the Amateur Radio Emergency Service. It is a creation of the American Radio Relay League. They work with, it's in the Homeland Security guidance to local emergency planners. They do it at the county level and then at the state level. Okay, that local counties are supposed to incorporate hams into their emergency communications plan. ARES is the organizam that they link with to do that. And so with ARES, you can go plan with them, practice with them, and so on. A lot of first responders have gotten their technician licenses. Okay, because we can't cross-communicate from one service to another, except on very rare occasions, like Armed Forces Day, where they do cross-communications on different frequencies, split frequencies, between the Mars stations that are on the Army bases and so on, and hams. Hams will transmit in ham bands. Army will respond in Army. Now, ARES is one of the two organizations. The other one, RACES, Radio Amateur Civil Emergency Service, is a service within a service. Amateur radio is an FCC service, described by Part 97 of the FCC regulations. Okay, and it's RACES is official. Now the difference, RACES is only allowed to operate in the event of emergencies. So how do you practice? Well, that's an issue. This is why people kind of tend to gravitate to ARES, which has flexible rules, whereas the FCC itself has to approve a change to the amateur regulations. And I will tell you right now, the last thing on an FCC commissioner's mind is amateur radio. What they're interested in is finding spectrum and selling it to the ever ravenous cell phone companies for billions of dollars. The FCC, instead of being a sleepy little regulatory agency like it used to be, is big business. And they make a lot of money for the federal government. So they prefer that the hams be self-regulated. Now, the way that's done is the hams have taken away from the FCC the burden of administering licensing testing and certifying that people have passed all the requirements for the license. That information is punched into a data tape. It is sent via the internet to FCC computers, and those computers accept it at face value and kick out the licenses. Again, all electronically, untouched by human FCC hands. Okay. Tegan, my assistant, took his test on Saturday and had his call sign on Tuesday. So that works very well. Now, at the request of the FCC, the league reorganized the Official Observer Corps. And they volunteer observers or something like that. Riley Hollingsworth, who used to work for the FCC, now for the league, heads up this organization. And what these people do is they try first to communicate with hams who are interfering or doing stupid things or using their technician license on HFFD8 or something like that. They'll contact them directly. They know how to do this. They've been trained. And if that solves the problem, fine. If there is a problem that just won't solve, then the people, Riley's people, there's a process where they refer that to the FCC. And the hams can do the monitoring and get the official tapes and stuff like that that can count as evidence and so on. It's very sophisticated. It's very different from the Official Observer Program. There are quite a fewer volunteer observers. And they also, when they find exemplary operating, they will make a big deal out of that too, with certificates and all this kind of stuff, and publicity in QST. They report every month in QST what they're up to. Now, mind you, it takes like 3 months deadline to get the thing out. So what you're reading was from 3 months ago. But there you go. Now, okay, that was the self-policing on their thing. And I think they do something similar in Canada. Now, in Canada, there are two major amateur organizations. One is allied with the ARRL. one is not. Hams in Canada are kind of split between the two. I guess some join both. In Great Britain, there's the Radio Society of Great Britain. I don't know how they do that in Australia. It'd be interesting. I think there's just one organization. Now, the administration has been talking about all the federal departments finding ways to simplify its rules. And one thing that I suggested doing for the FCC is just turn the whole ham radio thing over to the league and be done with it. With watchdog provisions on top of that, so the league doesn't go off on a tangent, which it does from time to time. But everything, and I think there should be two classes of license, lower and upper, and that the lower should have some HF privileges. You know, they can even get on part of the 20-meter band. And basically it becomes the general and the extra, and so on. Okay? This business of technicians using just VHF is a throwback to the 1950s when there was a class called technician, and they dealt strictly with VHF. That was their bag. They weren't interested in other stuff, okay? Okay, let's see. And that's, okay, that answers the question, what ARES? What does the Salvation Army do with their ham group? Same thing, emergency communications. But they'll all do it a little differently. Larry says, I heard others say that the Moscow Bureau takes about a year to get a card back. They've speeded up, if that's the case, because it used to take a lot longer than that. Now, I've got quite a few cards from places that no longer exist, like the Soviet Union. I have a card from East Germany, a country that no longer exists. It will still count for DXCC credit because at the time I got it, it was a country and met the criteria for a country. Okay, but it's fun to show off that card to people. Blast from the past. Let's see. Hi from Ottawa, Canada, Jeff. Harry Rundle, hi Dave from Middle River, Maryland. 80 degrees, 50% humidity. It'll cool down, I hope. Although with that much humidity, it may not. That's AC3EK. Larry, been using the log 4OM, and they have it set up. You can do the automatic logging of contacts. Great. Harry says, great news about your health. I'm pretty excited about it. Alfie 57, I saw you at Dayton, and you look great. Thank you. I told everybody for weeks prior to Dayton, if you see me, stop me. Shake my hand, say hello. I want to meet you. And dozens upon dozens and upon dozens of hams did exactly that. I went over to the ARRL author booth because I write the QST column called Ask Dave. And there was a 12-year-old who'd been waited to meet me. And he wanted selfies and all this kind of stuff. He was working on his tech and he wanted to meet the guy behind the television screen. So, very good. Chris Goodman, K0BLU, hello from St. Cloud, Minnesota. 75 and clear. 1.5 inches of rain here yesterday. Congratulations on the weight loss. Thank you. Harry says, log books I use as AC log for QSL's EQSL. Since I have a high number of QSOs, EQSL is preferred. I can, if I want, print out a copy of my digital version. I do get some mailed QSOs. Optical Man Jeff has added $15 to the chat revenue, which I greatly appreciate. Says, thanks, Dave, for a very informative live stream. I always set Thursday evening for your program. Well, thank you. Now, if you go on YouTube, if you don't want to do Patreon, you can become a YouTube member. This is what it will cost you per month. $2. And yes, $2 bills are a thing. They really do exist. And this is a valid one. It's been ironed and it's very nice and crispy. Actually, $1.99 a month. You can join. I've got over 50 people, I think now, who've joined. Patreon, takes their chunk. YouTube takes their chunk. PayPal takes the least chunk. So anyway, however it works, I really appreciate all 59 members. I checked today, 59 people who are members of this channel via YouTube. And I thank those who do it via Patreon, which is the biggest financial contributor to the channel, and those who do it via PayPal, which I'm slowly phasing out. I'm not moving people over to either patron or channel memberships, but they all work. They all work. Thank you. Harry Rundle added $10 to the chat revenue. Says, love the technical material and other human interest stories. Keep up the good work, AC3EK. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hermes Light 2. Screen. Hermes Light 2. Ham radio transceiver, very economical. SDR for pure SSB operation. $340 is not low cost. Pure signal technology. The ANAN radios, okay. Full-bodied appearance, okay. Let me tell you a little bit about USB, or sideband, just sideband in general. Okay. Upper sideband, an AM signal has a carrier and two sidebands, an upper and a lower sideband. We say in classes that there's no information in the carrier. That is not true. What is in the carrier is phase information. Remember, an audio signal in a waveform has, between the different frequencies, phases and so on. Now, the human ear mostly hears frequency but not phase. A trained ear can hear phase. And if you do single sideband, you chop out the carrier, you chop out one of the redundant sidebands, and you have just the sideband frequency information only. So it is distorted. Now, to most people, it sounds different, but perfectly understandable. Now, what some shortwave stations do for AM, they'll put one sideband and a little bit of a carrier. Now, you can use AM reception techniques to pull that together, and what amplitude modulation does is it engages both the frequency and the phase for a much higher fidelity sound. Okay? Now, if someone has figured out how to send phase information along with the sideband frequency information, more power to them. All you need is a carrier, a single tone. But that tone, what you have to do to get single sideband reception, you've got a local oscillator that re-injects the tone to beat against the sideband signal. Used to call it a beat frequency oscillator, as a matter of fact, to recover the spoken speech. If you listen only to the frequency information, it makes no sense. You've got to reinsert the carrier to make it sound like audio. But the problem is that the injected signal, that's what it's called, signal injection. The signal injection is not phase linked to the transmitter. And so therefore you do not recover the phase information. I did a video on phase differences once, and most people said, well, I can't tell the difference. And then some very well-trained musician came back and said, Dave, that sounds awful. So they had trained ear, they could hear the phase. All natural instruments do not just create a fundamental frequency. There will be harmonics and semitones in there too. The mathematics of a vibrating string is exceptionally complex. And it's one of the first things that was looked at by mathematicians. Fourier, when Fourier was a French mathematician, came up with this idea that time sequences were equivalent to frequency/phase sequences. Not just the frequency, but frequency and phase. So we've ignored phase for most of the history of single sideband. But if you can re-inject it, you can make it sound like AM. Sounds very good. Okay, optical man. Gee, we're out of time, aren't we? We have an active ARES division of our club, but our county emergency management department does not think hams can be of much value to them. They do not include us in any county activities. This is a common problem. The DHS encourages counties to include hams. It's possible that this emergency manager had a bad experience with hams at one point. What hams are good for is staffing at emergency shelters, hospitals, and so on to provide health and welfare communication, where people can get a message out of, say, a flood-stricken area. They can get a message out to a relative, say, hey, we're alive, we're accounted for. And the same with hospitals. I'm in the hospital, I broke my leg, but I'm okay, I'm going to recover, okay? That kind of thing, often, they will let the hams do. The problem with the ham response, I mean, we are, after all, amateurs in the classic sense of the term. An amateur is someone who is just as good as a professional, but is not paid. And the word comes from the original English, England, Great Britain, understanding of the word amateur. Amateur sports, amateur athletes were upper-class people who had their own funding. They didn't need funding. In fact, going pro was considered a step down. But of course that's changed. But the term amateur radio, when Hiram Percy Maxim first applied it, he meant that hams are just as capable at radio as anyone else, but we don't accept remuneration for it. And that's where that rule comes from. We are not allowed to accept remuneration, money, for what we do. Okay, even a tip, can't do that. I will take a hot cinnamon bun, maybe, though. But anyway, yes, this is going to take some real diplomacy to show the county emergency management what your real value is. You invite them out to field day. Sometimes there might be a local 10K run or something, and the amateurs will provide communications for it. And these things, make sure the county manager sees it, build up a relationship. I mean, all these things are based on personal relationships. In the final analysis, life is all about personal relationships. So anyway. Okay, let's see. We got to get through this here. Let's see. Larry in the Philippines says, one of my ships, we were in the shipyards and a typhoon came ashore. The local security mentioned do not go ashore since some damage could happen, saw a roofing fly by. The base police arrested some of our group as they disobeyed the rules, escorted them back to the ship. They were Nav Ocean scientists. Scientists don't like to obey rules. He says, we have ARES in the Philippines here, but during our typhoons, we monitor 4 frequencies, 7095, 144.74, 147.5, 147.525. The last ones are not ham. They're on a different group. Okay, yeah, the frequencies, I think you're in region 3 in the Philippines. The IARU region 3. The Americas are region 2, and Europe is region 1, and I think Africa too. Okay. Hi, Dave, 15-month member. Thanks for all you do. You're welcome. KQ4 ONC. Martin, Dave, thank you for your service. Congrats on the weight loss. Terrence, 2 Echo Zero, India Papa Kilo. Oh, nuts. I forgot we've gone into Friday. Yes, we are. We're 2.5 hours into Friday. I thought it was Wednesday going into Thursday. I'm getting old, Dave. Hope all is well with you. Things are good. Thank you. Glenn Martin, Doug Lane, if you have not hit the like button, please do that. Yes, please. I got a card from Yugoslavia, but when logged it, it came to Serbia. Yeah, Yugoslavia does not exist anymore. And a card from Yugoslavia today will have to be marked with one of the countries that have been, that the Balkans fractured into. Now there's a raging debate over Kosovo. Kosovo has declared independence from Bosnia. Anyway, they've made it stick so far, and I think they are recognized as a DXCC entity. I'm not sure on that, but they've not been recognized by the UN or anything as a separate company. Okay. Hi from Scotland. I am an amateur. Amateur, yes, amateur. Thank you for the Scottish pronunciation of amateur. One of the YouTube channels I follow is the Hoof GP. He's a Scottish dairy cow hoof trimmer, and he has a fantastic channel. And everybody loves the hooves that have problems in them. People love to see pus squirt out of a hoof, you know. Anyway, we all like that kind of thing. That's why there's so many channels on pimple popping. Anyway, there they are. Okay, Larry says, been training my grandson. He called me last night saying the microphone is not working. Told him to check the settings, and if programmed, check it with chirp. He loves the hobby already. Very good. 9W8ZZ Kilo. Mohammed. Good day, Dave. Real DX there. Thank you. Gary Shepard, hi from Scotland. And Terrence, missed most of it, Dave. Can you start over? I will this coming Thursday. And yes, I know that it is actually... let's see, it's 8:30 now, our time, 8:30 p.m. In the Philippines, it's sometime mid-morning. I think we had an Australian check-in. It's morning over there. Japan is certainly morning. And in the UK and Europe, you're definitely in the wee hours of the morning. So let me do my last little sell job. Please join membership. This is all it'll cost you every month. Actually, a penny less than this. $1.99 a month, and you can be a member. Now, why do you want to become a member? Or a patron? Or somebody who subscribes on PayPal? The answer, very simply, besides getting a cute little emoticon, is you get to view the videos as soon as we put them up. We sometimes put videos up as much as a month in advance because we're trying to stay way far ahead. So if we get sick or something happens or, got a family emergency or whatever it is, we've got steady output coming on through. You as a member / patron / subscriber get the content as soon as it's put up. Now, we can't do that directly with patrons or YouTube subscribers. So what we do is we have a list and we send you each an email link to what is at that point an unlisted video. And then it will be listed on the official day it comes out. You can do everything with one of those videos. You can comment on it. You can respond to other people's comments. It's like it's yours. You can get on and look at it early. And, maybe you can tell somebody else that it's a cool channel. Okay, we have 79 current viewers. 626 people have stopped by at some point. And we've had a good show. Now, my YouTube monitor over here tells me that we're 10 minutes behind real time. No, I think I only looked that up about 10 minutes ago. Thoughts on VHF versus UHF for indoors versus outdoors? They both work. 0324 here. Oh, you're on British summertime because I show 0226 UTC, but you're on British summertime there. And the continent is on summertime. You go at much more realistic dates than the U.S. does. And it's so confusing during that period where we're on summertime and you're not. It's just bonkers, but there we go. Okay. 73 to all. I'm going to say 73. And please watch the videos. I know some of you just watch the live streams. Please watch the videos. I want your comments. Please comment. That also helps the YouTube algorithm as it shows engagement. And the other thing besides, the Jefferson bill here, that is Thomas Jefferson on there. Considering we live in a type of government called a Jeffersonian democracy, he was the founding father of the intellectual property that goes behind the Constitution and the courts and the three equal branches of government and so on. But all he gets is a $2 bill. I mean, Franklin gets the top spot on the $100 bill. He was quite the philanderer, but he also was a major contributor. He never took office of any kind, never became president. He loved being the ambassador to France because, this little reputation Paris has, it's had that reputation for hundreds of years. And Benjamin Franklin took full advantage. And that's probably why he never ran for office, because the opponent would bring it up, you know. Up until the early 1800s, it was considered gauche to run yourself for an office. You're supposed to let other people do it for you. That and and there weren't supposed to be political parties, but there were. I mean, people fell into two different groups almost immediately. And, oh well, no more history lessons tonight. 73 to all of you. We'll see you later. Some of the people have said I'm still live, I know. The problem is I'm watching my YouTube feedback here, and it's running 15 minutes behind my real time. And I don't want to cut the stream off before it ends. I think different people kind of get it at slightly different times. And it has to do with the quality of the connection or something like that. Anyway, just waiting for myself to stop waving my arms. Because see, it's way past time up there. I think I may just have to cut it off. We're up to almost 2 hours of streaming. That's right, I did start early, didn't I? Still 50 concurrent viewers, interesting. Maybe I should do a little dance, a little hula.